Hi, Bucknuts readers, subscribers. This is Patrick Murphy here with Steve Helwagen, and we're trying something a little new this Thursday night. We've done plenty of these live videos. If you followed us on Facebook, you followed us on Instagram, we've done them for the last few years. But we're trying something a little different here, where we can go on multiple platforms at once and interact with people. So we're gonna give it a shot, see how it works. I think this may be helpful to get us out to more people. Tonight we're talking Ohio State, Michigan State, and Ohio State basketball in general. Steve, before we get into tonight's game, since we haven't done a ton of these throughout the basketball season, let's kind of go back through this basketball season. And we know Ohio State started ranked 23rd in the country in the AP poll. There were some expectations, but I don't think it was tremendous that the Buckeyes were going to be a super talented team. And throughout this year, they've just kind of evolved, developed, credit the players, credit Coach Holtman. What do you think has been the biggest thing that's gotten Ohio State to where they're number 4 in the country and a potential number 1 seed here if things go well to the NCAA tournament?
I think there's great cohesion. I think that this is a very good basketball team. They play good team basketball, particularly on offense, and at times – when they're really clicking, they play pretty well on defense. That hasn't been the case the last couple of games, giving up 82 points to Penn State, 92 points in the loss to Michigan. They need to get back on top of their defensive principles, no question about it. And it hurts that tonight one of their better interior defensive players, Kyle Young, will not be available because he suffered a concussion in the final seconds of the game against Michigan. He cracked heads with a Michigan player who, as I watch this game tonight, Mike Smith's playing for Michigan. So Kyle Young, the bigger, stronger guy, got the worst of it, unfortunately, and that's just kind of been the way his whole career has gone at Ohio State. Always seems to be a little dinged up, but this was more of a freak accident than anything. But to me, one thing you cannot overlook is the veteran nature of this team. And of their top 7 scorers, 6 of them have now played at least 80 college games. And I don't think you can underrate that. And you want to get old and stay old is the comment that Chris Holtman and a lot of people make. And when you have veterans like Kyle Young, who's typically in the lineup, as well as Dwayne Washington Jr., who's starting to really come into his own. He was channeling his inner Carson Edwards, I think, the other day against Michigan, scoring inside, outside, doing everything but sell popcorn, it seemed, the other day for Ohio State against Michigan. Played one of his best games yet. Justice Suing obviously played 2 years at California and now in a 3rd year at Ohio State. Seth Towns played 2 years at Harvard, now in a 3rd year at Ohio State. Justin Arns in his 3rd year. C.J. Walker in his 4th year as a college player. So as you go up and down this roster, the only guy in the top 7 scorers who's not played that number of games is E.J. Liddell, who is arguably their best player. And, he played 30 games last year and is up to 22, I guess, or 21, because he did miss a game or two, whatever that was back in December. But so he's around 50 games for his career, give or take. But he's really come into his own as well. He's had 23 points the last 2 games for Ohio State. So to me, that's what it is, that they buy into what Coach Holtman is selling. They play great team basketball on offense. They share the ball. They seem to have an innate idea where each other is. You'll watch it tonight. Passes come out of nowhere to guys you don't even think are open for layups. And then on defense, when they're really tuned in, they can be nasty. They just haven't had that the last couple of games.
Yeah, I think the veteran presence is a big one, especially in a year like this where you didn't have your normal offseason work. You didn't have your normal preseason. Guys have been in and out of being able to practice. Unfortunately, Ohio State hasn't been hit by too much COVID disruption, but it's just been a weird year. So having veteran guys that already know what they're expected to do, I think, is a plus. And another thing, you didn't have that January swoon, so to speak, that we've seen under Chris Holtman teams of the past. And he's been asked about that a lot this year and has kind of avoided talking about it. I don't think he wants to make that a thing that he addresses very much, but they got better in January, which is what you want to do. You want to start building to play your best basketball here towards the end of February and going into March. So major props to the Buckeyes. Steve, let's go back to the Michigan game, because I think that's one that, if you weren't paying attention to this Buckeye team beforehand, that's a game a lot of fans probably tuned into and caught maybe their first Buckeye game of the season. It's a loss. It's a 5-point loss on your home court, but Michigan is clearly one of the best teams in the country. And I think Ohio State showed that they too were the best team, one of the best teams in the country, and a true contender for that number 4 ranking and kind of all the praises they've got. What was your biggest takeaway from the Michigan result?
Yeah, I think it was obviously a tough game for the Buckeyes. And, it was even for 37 and a half minutes. And then obviously Ohio State kind of blinked there with that turnover by Justice Suing with 2.5 minutes to go. That was very costly. And so, I just I don't know. It would have been great if Ohio State had won the game. But as it turned out, it didn't really hurt them all that much. Everybody still had them as a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament this week. They're still number 4 in the polls. And what's interesting, Pat, is college basketball continues every day of the week. There's another game every day of the week somebody's playing. In the last 3 days since the poll came out, number 5, Illinois, number 6, Alabama got smoked last night by Arkansas, and number 7, Oklahoma, lost to Kansas State. So the 3 teams directly behind them have already lost this week. And what that tells me is that if Ohio State is able to go 1-1 in the balance of this week, they have a good chance to still be number 4 next week. And that means either win this game and, heaven forbid, lose the Iowa game, or lose this game to a team, Michigan State, that's coming back to its senses, it seems, a little bit, and then go home and beat Iowa. Either way, they can't catch Michigan. Michigan's way out in front in the Big Ten. It's going to be decided by percentage. Winning percentage is how the Big Ten championship is going to be decided. Michigan's not going to play the full 20 games, and Ohio State's 4 games back in the loss column, so they can't catch Michigan. And the best they can do is finish second in the Big Ten, which if they get the number 2 seed for the Big Ten tournament or the number 3 seed, that's wonderful. You wouldn't have to play Michigan, obviously, again until the championship game of the tournament if you're able to advance that far. The key thing above all else is win a couple of these last 3 games at a minimum to ensure that you are nothing worse than the 4 seed in the tournament, because the top 4 seeds all have the bye to Friday in the quarterfinals. You don't have to play on Thursday. Ohio State's had that look for the longest time that they're going to finish in the top 3 or 4 in the Big Ten. Now you need to finish and make it happen, and that begins tonight.
Yeah, and it's not going to be easy. We'll talk about what comes after this game a little bit later. And I forgot to mention at the beginning, if you have questions, feel free to comment. We'll answer if you have some questions on there. Throw them in the comment section. That Michigan game to me just felt like one of the teams had to lose. It reminded me a lot of Ohio State a few years ago. Yeah, a few years ago in football when it went to overtime, Curtis Samuel scores the touchdown. Obviously, the Buckeyes win that one, but that was a great game where one team just had to lose. And that's just kind of the nature of sports. And I think Ohio State did itself well by performing the way it did. Especially, Michigan hits 10 first half 3-pointers, comes back in the second half. You defend that a little better. There's they go down low to their big man. So now Ohio State knows what it takes when you go up against a team like Michigan, specifically Michigan. Let's turn our attention to tonight. You already touched on it a little bit. No Kyle Young, which on the stat sheet probably doesn't look as big as it really is, but the energy, the toughness that he gives this team, I don't think there's a tangible way to equate that, like what he gives to guys. We talked to Chris Holtman earlier this week. He mentioned Zedke. He mentioned some of the other forwards, Seth Towns, having to step up. Just in that matchup, who do you see stepping into that role? How do you see them doing that, handling it without Kyle Young? I know Ibrahima Diallo, we've seen him warm up a few times. Not that he's played a ton and not that he gives you a ton, but I think you know that he's a 6'10" guy, which certainly helps. What do you think they do to make up for the lack of Kyle Young tonight?
Yeah, that's a great question, because if EJ Liddell gets in any kind of foul trouble, they're going to have a problem, because the big guy, Joey Hauser, had a really good game against Ohio State. He was about the only guy from Michigan State who really showed up. He and Joshua Langford, who's really made a great late season run here for Michigan State. The two of them, I think they were both right around 15 or 16 points in that first meeting with Ohio State. Nobody else did much of anything. And Ohio State's going to have their hands full with Hauser. He is a tremendous offensive player when he gets going. So the Buckeyes, I mean, he's not in the Luka Garza, Kofi Coburn, Travion Williams level, but he's right there maybe on that next level of big men in the Big Ten Conference, and he can be a load at times. So I think that's a matchup to watch. I presume Liddell will start out on him. I don't know if they'll put C.J. Walker in the starting lineup or if they'll put Zed Key in the starting lineup as the center, and maybe he starts off and you try and steal as many minutes as you can with Zed Key at center from the beginning of the game, and then stay with your plan on Walker and rotating those guards accordingly. Suing usually plays the first 3 or 4 minutes at the point and then moves over to the 2 or 3 position, and either Dwayne Washington or Justin Arns comes out of the game and CJ Walker comes in, and they just kind of go from there and rotate those 4 guys pretty religiously there among those 3 spots. So it's been a great rotation for Ohio State with those guys. But I think Zed Key is a guy that's going to help out there quite a bit. If they can squeeze 15 to 20 minutes out of him in this game without him fouling out or creating a problem inside, getting beat inside, which I don't think he will. He's got good length. He gets good position. He fights. He works really hard. I think he can step up and play 15, 18 minutes a game. 20 might be stretching it beyond his comfort zone. If Diallo plays, which he hasn't played since December the 13th against Cleveland State, he had a sprained MCL after that game. He's been out over 2 months because of that. If he plays, it can't be for more than about 5 or 6 minutes in a pair of 2 or 3 minute dollops, maybe one in the first half, late in the first half, and one midway through the second half to just kind of bridge a gap, which, again, he's only been practicing for a week. And Coach Holtman said he really doesn't have his sea legs under him yet in terms of his conditioning. So I wouldn't look for Ibrahima Diallo to play more than 5 minutes, if that. And the other guy is Seth Towns. Seth Towns has that length and has the experience. He can go down on a block and guard a guy if he has to. Probably not his preference, probably not Coach Holtman's preference either. But Seth's got that length to go down and help out with some rebounding. Maybe he could play the 4 for a little bit, and Liddell would play the 5 or something like that, or Key would play the 5. But I think Towns is a guy that you could maybe steal. He doesn't play a lot of minutes either, though. He usually only plays about 10 minutes, and I think some of that has to do with his knees and whether or not he's fully healthy or not. So going to take a village tonight, Pat. They're going to have to really I talked about at the onset, this is a team that really has come together, and they're going to have to come together even more to pull this one off. Michigan State is desperate as desperate can be right now.
Yeah, they were talking. I was watching the Michigan-Iowa game that's on right now, and they were kind of previewing the Ohio State-Michigan State game. And if Michigan State can get another top 5 win, you mentioned earlier they beat Illinois earlier this week. Does that put them in the picture for the NCAA tournament? And they were kind of back and forth on that. But like you said, desperate and playing well. I think the team that you saw against Ohio State that lost by 17, what was that, 3 weeks ago or so? A different team now. They were coming off the COVID 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it was, break. And now they've kind of found something. And this is a Tom Izzo team. We know that they play well at the end of the season. It happens every year, regardless of who's on the court. So, I agree with you. I think this is going to be a tough one, an interesting one, especially without Kyle Young. If we just because we probably won't do this post game just because of how late this game will end. If we project beyond this to Iowa and the last 2 games against Iowa and Illinois, how do you see? You mentioned earlier, maybe going 2-1, 1-1 in this stretch, and then the win against maybe Illinois. But what do you think Ohio State needs to do to hang on to this potential number 1 seed here with these last 3 games? Can they afford losing to Michigan State and then beating these 2 teams, or losing to one of those 2 teams at home and beating Michigan State? How do you see it having to play out?
Yeah, I think that their metrics still look really good. And just a thought back on Michigan State, their situation very dire. 75th right now in net. You would figure you're probably a good lock for the tournament if you're in the top 35 or 40 as an at-large team. So they've got a lot of room to pick up. And they're only 3-8 in quad one games. So that tells you they really haven't beaten anybody other than Illinois, who's up there at the top that's really considered, maybe a Sweet 16 type contender. They don't have any quality wins. They beat Duke early on, and they probably have another good Big Ten win somewhere along the line. I can't remember it. They won at Indiana, who is now falling almost completely off the bubble after the way they embarrassed themselves last night at Rutgers. So Michigan State, dangerous team. They need it. And they have 2 games remaining with Michigan, their arch rival, one home and one away, and another marquee game as well as that. So they've got some opportunities here at the end. Regarding Ohio State, as I mentioned, the 3 teams directly behind them, nobody's coming. Nobody has – Illinois had won 7 straight games and was making a push for that number 1 seed. And they spit the bit on Tuesday night. They're going to womp up, I presume, on Nebraska here tonight. I know they were up 8 points over Nebraska at halftime. That's a must-win, obviously, for them. You cannot lose to Nebraska.
No.
This Iowa-Michigan game is a dogfight. Looks like a 1 or 2 point game right now. And Iowa on Sunday, coming to Ohio State, they're going to want revenge. Obviously, that was a bitter loss for them. When Ohio State went in there to Iowa City and won the game 89-85. And Fran McCaffrey thought Ohio State had been very physical with Luka Garza, held him 10 points below his scoring average, presumptive National Player of the Year candidate, 26 points a game, only had 16 or 17 points in that game. And he's going to be on a mission coming into Ohio State. And if there's no Kyle Young, if his after effects from this concussion are such that he's not available for Sunday, that kind of clouds that one even a little bit more as well. So they got to get this one tonight. That's where you start. I was very emboldened. I saw their social media. The guy that we see at the games, you'll see him on television. He's down there on the baseline taking the social media video. They have him shoot a half-court shot at the end of the shoot-around every time. And today, for the final road game of the year, he hit the half-court shot, and the team celebrated like they just won the Big Ten championship. So to me, that was neat to see the guys in such a good frame of mind earlier today. And they're going to walk into the arena with smiles on their faces, and they're going to bring it from the first minute. And that's what it takes. You got to match. At the Breslin Center, Ohio State's lost 7 games in a row. Last one they won was in 2012. It was almost a miracle. They pulled it out. William Buford hit a shot with a second or two to go, 72-70. They won the Big Ten championship in 2012 with Aaron Kraft and Jared Sullinger and William Buford. And, tough place to play is in general what we're telling you. And you got to go in there and match their intensity because they're going to come with everything they got tonight. So Ohio State's got to match.
Yeah, I agree completely. It's like you said, always been a tough place to play for everyone, but especially for Ohio State of late. We only have one question here, and it kind of applies both to football and basketball. I imagine it's more of a football question, but we'll address this. Michael Hester, why isn't there appeals and complaints about the extension of the dead period for the recruitment? I'll touch on what I think, and then you can give your thoughts, Steve.
Okay.
It's a tricky situation, right? Because of everything with COVID, the traveling that you have to do to visit. And I think for some schools, not Ohio State, but some schools, there's a financial impact of hosting kids on these official visits that maybe they don't right now feel comfortable being able to do that. And maybe you say, well, that's advantage Ohio State and some of these top programs. I think the NCAA is trying to keep things as level as possible, which we know is not really the case. But my thought is that schools don't want to fight back on this because they think the NCAA is sort of doing the right thing. Obviously, they're frustrated. We've heard Ryan Day discuss how difficult this last class was. Chris Holtman has mentioned once or twice about the recruiting. He doesn't get asked nearly as much about it as Ryan Day does. But, it's not been easy. And for any school, I know that they're doing it at the smaller school level, the 1AA or Division II or whatever. I've seen that those people are allowed to visit. So it is kind of a strange situation, but I think everyone's trying to be as PC about it, if that's the right word, as possible. Steve, what are your thoughts on this dead period going now over a year?
Yeah, Michael assumes that Ohio State has a feeling one way or the other on hosting recruits. Ohio State went $60 million in the hole, obviously, because there were no fans at the games last year. I don't think finances, though, are really what's driving this, because I think those travel costs are kind of negligible for official visits. I mean, in a given year, you might spend $100,000 maybe on travel for prospects. I think the bigger travel costs are sending your college assistant coaches, all 10 of your assistants and your head coach, all over the country during the open periods for the observation periods. That's where you're going to spend the lion's share of the money. So it has nothing really to do with the visits. I think that this is, and again, you have to remember, this isn't the NCAA sitting in an ivory tower and somebody dictating to schools. Everybody has this all wrong. The NCAA is the schools, okay? There are conference representatives who kick things up to the NCAA level. If the Big Ten schools were pounding the gavel and saying, we want official visits yesterday, and the ACC and the SEC and everybody else was doing that, you'd have official visits. We'd have guys flying all over the country going to visit schools. As it stands, kids and their parents can come on their own dime, walk around the campus, check it out, and get whatever information they can about it. What's prohibited right now is the school setting up a visit with a kid, particularly the athletic department, setting up a visit with a kid and meeting in person with that kid on campus. None of that can be done. Can't meet with them off campus either. And that's done for the health and the safety of the kid, his parents, and the people who are paid to work at these colleges. There's a global pandemic, COVID-19, that's going on right now. Do I agree personally with the policy? There's got to be a way to make it work. Masks, plexiglass, dividers.
Sure.
Have somebody at the NCAA draw up a meeting room where they can all sit in a room safely and say, if you build this room, you can have people come into this room and sit across from one another with a plexiglass divider and at least say hello to each other and see each other in person, have a conversation in person. But it takes out of the box thinking to come up with solutions to problems. I think it's a liability issue. I think if a college coach who's paid is told you will go and press the flesh with this kid and his parents, and one of them contracts COVID to him, and then he has some kind of dire health situation, he could sue the school for putting him in that position. Yeah. That's the fact of the matter. That's where we are at in the year 2021. It's a litigious society. And I think the NCAA is being cautious upon cautious in putting its coaches, administrators in a position where, are you going to test the kid and his parents before they meet with your coach? I mean, I don't know. I guess you could, but you have no purview over those people. You can't compel them to take a test. I mean, I don't know. To me, I see both sides of it. You think common sense wise, we should be able to have these kids come right through the facility. Yeah, right when the guys are down the hallway working out and they're going to pass each other in the hallway. Yeah, check out the weight room. We got 20 guys in there working out who've, by the way, passed a test this morning to allow them to come into the building.
Yeah.
It's the devil is in the details, guys. I get you. I hear you. I feel you. We'll need to get JT on campus. We've got to get JT on campus. Can't happen until it's safe. Can't happen until it's safe.
Yeah. All right. Well, with that, we're going to sign off. We're going to get ready for this game tonight. Obviously, Buckeyes, Spartans, 9 p.m. tonight. For Steve, I'm Patrick. Thanks for tuning in. We're going to do more of these as we're able to, now that we've got this set up. Go ahead, Steve.
73-67 Ohio State. Ohio State's favored by 4. Don't put any money on it just because I said that and because I told you what the line is. But I think Ohio State's shot making, it makes a difference. Michigan State's starting to come together a little bit, but I think Ohio State gets back on top of it defensively.
Cool. We'll tune in. We'll have more of these, like I said, now that we've got this whole setup here. We'll have more of these as this basketball season goes on. Spring football, we'll do plenty of these as well. So stay tuned. Thanks for tuning in. Steve, thanks for jumping on here with us. We'll talk to everyone soon. And obviously, stay tuned to Bucknuts. We'll have coverage after the game, coverage tomorrow, all your normal Ohio State stuff. So thanks, guys. We appreciate it.